Okay, so I'm a bit nervous because I've got a lot of things to say, but I haven't written anything down, so I'm not really sure how where to start. So I'm afraid that I'm gonna miss some points, but I'll just make another video if I miss some points and I've got more things to say. But basically, this is a video where I'm gonna be talking about Harry Potter. Harry Potter is a franchise that I grew up with, and it really has a lot of like sentimental value for me. Yeah, so I wanted to make a video about kind of just, I suppose, Harry Potter in general. I want to make a series on my YouTube channel where I just talk about Harry Potter. Obviously, other videos are going to be different. You know, I've got, if you want to watch other videos I've made videos where I go and like bake a Chicago-style pizza, and it's a disaster, and it ends up being really funny and a lot of fun. And you can go check that out on the channel as well. And if that's more your lane, 100% go watch those videos instead. But I also wanted to just make a couple of videos, a playlist of just me talking about Harry Potter. Some of these things are going to be more about the project that I'm working on, which is called Harry Potter the Magical Edition, which is a fan edit. Basically, I'm editing the Harry Potter films 1 to 8 and making them more magical, or at least in my personal opinion, more magical. And that's going to be part of the video, and the other part of the video is just going to be me talking about Harry Potter in general, and kind of analyzing it and just giving you my thoughts on it. Harry Potter is actually the first book I ever read, and the effect that those books had on me and like my capability, just my reading capabilities, is massive. Because like I have ADHD, like I have a difficult time reading in general. Just not like I can read like an essay or something, but I definitely as a kid it was difficult for me to read a book. Like I'd see other kids my age and they'd like sit down and they'd just like read a book for class, and I just couldn't do it. I couldn't focus. And so, but Harry Potter came out, those books, and I watched the films first. The first couple of films, and I was really like, I was at perfect age when those films were coming out. That I was 11 years old when the last film came out in 2011. So I was like that perfect age of like, okay, now the story is finished in the movies, and I'm at the exact age of when Harry was introduced into this world, basically. So it was just like the perfect time. And these books actually like made me read, and like actually like convinced me that reading was fun, which is huge for somebody like me. And I know it's something that affects a lot of people, and I know a lot of people started reading, the very first book they read was Harry Potter. However, as much as I love these films and I can sit down and watch these films anytime, there is something missing from the later films, I find. And I don't mean from the perspective of like, oh, okay, they obviously adapted the books not in the best way. Like obviously the first two Harry Potter films are quite authentic and like, not authentic, it's not the right word. I mean, like the adaptation is more, what's the word I'm looking for? Like it's more correct, basically. It's like it's a more correct adaptation of the books, while later on the films kind of do their own thing. They change and they end up doing they just go in a different direction, which is fine. But I always found it to be kind of lacking in magic in many ways. A lot of that magic that you had in the first two films, you could even say the third film as well, because you still had John Williams there, the musical composer. Once they had a shift in a musical composer, and another guy came in instead of John Williams for the fourth film, and so on, and then another guy for the fifth and the sixth film, and another guy for the seventh and eighth film. It just changed the tone of it completely, and it lacked some of that kind of magic. So my approach, and why I call it my edits the magical edition, is I want to bring back some of that musical consistency from the first two films, and the third film as well, into the latter films. So I want to, like, I actually know a lot about the music of Harry Potter. The leitmotifs, what they mean, the themes, you know, like the way John Williams tells the story with the music, which is, I think, is more important than the melody itself. A lot of people talk about like, oh, okay, so Harry Potter has great music, obviously, I can hum the theme, dun, 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 dun. But I don't think that that's what makes it great. I think the melody is great, I think the music is great, but what makes it kind of, what takes it to that next level, in my opinion, is the fact that it is the way John Williams decides to tell the story with the music. So an example of that would be, what does the music represent? In the first film, John Williams made the decision of basically saying that the music in Harry Potter represents magic. When you have a scene that's devoid of magic, like a scene with the Dursleys, if you go watch those films back now, you'll actually see that there's a lot of scenes that actually don't have music in them. You know, you would think like, oh, okay, there's probably music in the entire film. But John Williams is very specific about what scenes should have music and what scenes should not have music. I think he's once said that was the most important thing he ever does. That's the most important decision he makes in the beginning of the process of making music for a film. It's called a spotting session, basically, where he sits down with the director and they decide where there should be music and where there shouldn't be music. And where there shouldn't be music has to be purposeful. That's also a tool. You need to have that contrast of music and then non-music. And he was very specific in the very first Harry Potter film, where he was like, okay, there's going to be scenes where there is music and there's going to be scenes where there's no music. How can I bring meaning into that? And he decided that basically no music means no magic. Music means magic. So the first time we hear music is obviously you have the title sequence, and then you have Dumbledore walking, and then there's music, right? Then it cuts to just the Dursleys living their normal life, no music. Then Harry goes to the zoo, and he starts talking to the snake, and the window disappears. Music, again, because magic. Then he goes back to the Dursleys' home, no music. Then the owls start flying in, music. And he's very specific about how he wants to tell the story with the music. What does the music represent? And then, within the music that he uses, he also has purposeful decisions. You know, this particular theme represents this character, this particular theme represents this. These couple of notes represent this particular aspect of the story. But one thing that I find actually to be quite genius in the way he tells the story with the music is, most people, and I think most films, they create character themes. So basically they go, okay, we have character A, he's going to be the main character in the story. Okay, I'm a composer, I'm going to make music. Okay, this is this main character's theme. And I start composing music for this particular character. John Williams actually doesn't do that. There is no such thing as a Harry Potter theme. There's no music that represents Harry Potter and is just Harry Potter's theme. And he does that on purpose, you know. He could very easily just go, okay, here's Harry Potter's theme, like he did with Indiana Jones. Here's Indiana Jones's theme, and it's this iconic piece that everybody knows. But with Harry Potter, what he did was he rather, instead of composing specific music to represent a character, for the main character of Harry, he actually composed music that represented different aspects of him. So you have Harry Potter's kind of lonely theme, or his family theme, which you will hear when he's by himself. For example, one of my favorite scenes in the first film is when Harry, the camera cuts to his bed, and it's empty, and it pans to the left, and he's sitting next to the window, and he has Hedwig in front of him, and he's looking out the window, and he's just kind of by himself. He obviously can't sleep, and this particular piece of music is playing. And it's just like this moment of just in the world living, you feel for the character, you feel that the world is real, and you're just in the story, And I think that's one of the strong suits of the first Harry Potter film, and the second Harry Potter film as well, that most people would look at these films and go, oh, well, this particular scene here and this particular scene here, it isn't relevant to the plot, so let's cut it out, and the plot stays the same, so we don't need it. Let's let's make the pacing quicker. Let's just take out this scene and this scene and this scene and let's just have it as quick as possible so people don't get bored. I think that's a mistake. That's a huge mistake because pacing isn't just faster, faster, faster. Sometimes if you want people to not get bored, you have to do the opposite. You have to slow things down. So if you slow the story down, people get more interested in it. It doesn't change the plot at all if you remove that scene. But it does change the story. The story doesn't remain the same if you take that scene out. You know, there is the plot, for those who don't know, the plot is basically the beat, the beat by beat, like what is happening, Harry meets a troll. He has to knock the troll out. Oh, he thinks that Snape is working with Voldemort. Okay, he thinks Snape is bad. What is he going to do about that? That's the plot. The story, though, is the plot plus everything else, There's a scene in the extended edition that I included in my magical edition of the film, where Harry, Ron, and Hermione, they leave the bathroom after the troll scene, and Ron basically says to Hermione, like, hey, what are friends for? And Hermione smiles, and it's like this really small moment of just friendship, and I think that is what really, that core of that theme of friendship is what makes this story work. And removing that scene from the theatrical run, I think, is an odd choice. I understand it. Obviously, you only have an X amount of time to the movie can only be X amount of long, because the longer the film is, the fewer screenings you have per day, basically. So if you have a 3-hour film, you can only show this film, let's say 15 times a day. But if you have a 2-hour film, you might be able to show this film 17 times a day or whatever, and that means more money. So I get it from a business perspective, but I do think also from a business perspective, if you make a film that resonates with people, you make more money in the long term. Like, these films still make money because they're good. Lord of the Rings is super long. They still make money. Like, to this day, those films are a cash cow for Warner Brothers. I think there's also an argument to be made that, like, okay, it's okay to have these films a bit longer, and, if you just make them good, it will resonate with people. But at the same time, obviously, not every film is going to be Harry Potter or Lord of the Rings. So if you're making just a normal film that you just want to make money off of the theatrical run, which is where films make most of their money, obviously, it makes sense to not want to have the film 3 hours long. However, with my edits, length isn't a subject. I'm not trying to make money off of these films. Actually, it's illegal for me to make money after these edits, so I'm not doing that at all. This is just a passion project of mine. So all I want to do is I want to make the pacing work, and I want to make the scenes work, and I want the story to be presented in the most effective way. I love the first Harry Potter film. The first Harry Potter film is actually my top 5 films of all time. I just love that film. So the first 2 Harry Potter films, actually the first 3 Harry Potter films, I don't do a lot of changes. There's the magical edition of those films is just tiny details of tweaking here and there, because I just, flaws and all, I love those films. So I don't want to change much of it. I'm not doing a lot with those films. An example would be, example of changes that I've done is, well, first of all, I've made the decision of making these films having my version of the film called The Philosopher's Stone. So if you're American and you're watching this, sorry, but obviously J.K. Rowling named it The Philosopher's Stone, and I think it makes more sense as well, because Nicholas Flamel is an actual person that lived and is an actual philosopher. Obviously, he didn't make an actual stone, but the legend around the actual person is that he made the elixir of life and made a stone that could that could turn any metal into gold and could live forever. That's the legend around him. It's like an actual, real legend. And the stone that he created is called the Philosopher's Stone, because he is the philosopher, and this is his stone, so it's the Philosopher's Stone. Calling it the Sorcerer's Stone doesn't really take into account the actual legend that exists in the real world around the Philosopher's Stone. So I think it's actually a better name to call it the Philosopher's Stone. Plus, I don't think Americans are dumb. I think calling it the Sorcerer's Stone is kind of it's like borderline disrespectful, because you're thinking that Americans are dumber than English people or or Europeans or whatever, which is just, it's not fair, I think. I think Americans would get it as much as anybody else. One decision I've made also, like I said, one decision I've made is that I was like, okay, the film is called Philosopher's Stone, that's one. Number two is some of the green screen work isn't the best. When it came out, it actually wasn't the best. It's not like dated. It was bad when the film was released. And that's one of the reasons why Chris Columbus, the director of the first two Harry Potter films, when he approached, the way he decided to approach the second film was he wanted to do a lot of the visual effects first. Because when you make a film, you only have like an X amount of schedule. You just have like, okay, I have this amount of time to make a film. And in the first film, a lot of the visual effects were done at the back end of the schedule of the film process. So like post-production, a lot of stuff was done much too late, and the film had to be released before the director was actually happy with a lot of the visual effects. But with the second film, he wanted to kind of speed the process up and actually start the visual effects process beforehand, or at least earlier. That's what I've heard. So the visual effects are kind of something that everybody, even the people that love this film, acknowledge, like, okay, the visual effects aren't the best. So what I've done is I've just tiny bit tried to like clean up some of the green screen work. Obviously, with the technology I have at my disposal today, it's better than the technology they had at the time. Even with the budget that they had, I still probably, even for free, well, if you consider my labor to be free, it's probably still better than what they've done. I haven't actually changed it. I've just kind of done tiny little details here and there to just tweak the green screen to make it just look a bit better. And I think you won't really think too much about it. You're not going to notice it much, but all you're going to realize is just, oh, okay, it looks better. You're just going to subconsciously, and that's what I really wanted to do. Is I wanted to make the decisions affect you in a subconscious way. I wanted you to watch this film and not think about the edits at all. Just watch this film and go, oh, this works better. So the first film, not a lot of changes. It's done, actually, because I didn't have to do a lot. It's finished, it's rendered, and if you want to watch the film, it's going to be on, I will put in the description how you can watch the film, because I think there's different ways I could do it. You can torrent it if you go on, like, if you have like a Cupid torrent, you could torrent the film, the fan version of the film. Or you can go, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to create like a Google account and upload the film on the cloud. Yeah, what I think I'm going to do is I'm probably going to upload the film on Google Cloud, where you can just click on the link and then download it straight from the cloud. That's probably what I'm going to do. And if you want to know what the link is, that's probably going to be in the description of this video and future videos as well. But as of now, only the first film is done. I've been working on and off on this edit for a long time, like for years actually. But what has stopped me from really completing it is that I haven't had the expertise. Like I think I'm a lot more competent now as an editor than I was, years ago. And also, it's the fact that the technology didn't really exist. Like a lot of the stuff that I wanted to do was actually, like, at least I didn't have the knowledge of the technology to do it. So I'm slowly, and I've been on and off for years, just like a little bit, just kind of tweaking things here and there. And the first film is done. If you want to watch it, you can click on the link in the description. But what I wanted to do was actually, for the later films, was I wanted to, actually, for the first film, I should say, for the first film, I actually included many of the deleted scenes that worked, like, for example, like the friendship scene I mentioned, which is powerful and great. But one thing I wanted to do was I wanted to add deleted scenes that made sense. I wanted to remove scenes that didn't make sense. I wanted to add musical consistency to the rest of the films. So from the third film on, like I said before, John Williams isn't the one who's actually composing the music for it. And when he isn't the one composing the music for it, instead of going, oh, okay, let's use his themes and also add in new stuff, they basically just went, oh, we don't need John Williams, let's just do everything new. except for one piece of theme, which you're obviously aware of, which is the Hedwig's theme, which is the main title theme, which is the dun 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 dun. That's like the only theme that comes through. And I was showing my cousin the fourth film, who was watching it for the first time, like this year actually. And when there was a scene in the fourth film where you get this like establishing shot over Hogwarts Castle, and it like pans down or like tilts down, and then it cuts to the Great Hall where the characters are inside, and it plays Hedwig's theme. And there's like I think there's like an owl that flies through the castle, like over the castle or something, and it plays Hedwig's theme. And my cousin was like, "Oh, that was awful," and I was like, "What?" And he was like, "That was awful. The way it was like the way the music was played, the melody was played. It was like really slow, and it lacked the magic." And I 100% agree with him, 100%, because it's not just making melodies that makes John Williams great. The melodies are great. You could hum so many of his music. Like so much of his music is hummable, but it's the way he conducts it. It's the way he decides to use it as well. It's the choices he makes with the music that makes his music great. You know, like Lord of the Rings. You know, the way they decide to tell the story with the music is what makes the music great. Obviously, the Shire theme and all these, you know, it's great as well. But there has to be thought behind the music, in my opinion. And I've analyzed the way John Williams composed music for Harry Potter, and I want to bring that knowledge into the later films. It's difficult to do because I don't actually have a clean slate of the film where I don't have a clean plate of the film without the music. So what I've had to do is I've had to edit and remove music, but keep the dialogue and keep the sound effects and all that, which is difficult. And sometimes it works really well, and sometimes you just kind of, I just have to go, okay, it didn't work this time around, and I'll just have to keep the original music. And I'm like I say, I'm very, very detailed in the way I do it. Like, if it doesn't work, I just have to, like, I accept it that it doesn't work and it doesn't work. I'm not gonna just do it for the sake of doing it. But what I've come to realize is I actually have made so many scenes, like the scene here that I'm editing right now, that you can see. So many of the scenes that I'm working on actually include, sorry, not include, I'm sorry. I was able to remove the music that was originally there and add John Williams music where it made sense. So it's not just, oh, Hedwig's theme sounds good, let's add it here because it sounds good. Like, no. I'm actually talking about every specific leitmotif and the way he uses music and what he wants the music to represent. I want to take that meaning of the music and I want to take that and add it into the film, this film. And I've done that with a lot of scenes, and it's worked like super well. Like at times I'm even surprised because I'm like, oh, that actually worked so well. But I also like a lot of the new music that's been composed. For me, the way I look at it is like I'm trying to look at it in a way where it's like as if John Williams and this new composer that they brought for the later films decided to work together to compose the music for the next film. So it's basically as if John Williams was like, oh, I've got Star Wars to do and I've got other things to do, so I'm going to need some help. But I'm not leaving the project. So John Williams is still composing the music for the films, but there's also a new guy that kind of works with him. So the new music creates this new identity for the story. You know, like if you look at Prisoner of Azkaban, for example, which is just John Williams, the music is very different because a new director came in and the new director wanted different sounds and different things. So the music is different, but also because it's John Williams, there's a lot of that magic and familiarity from the first two films. So you get this like nice balance of scenes where you have just music that you're familiar with and then also music where that's new. And so it creates this like unique identity for the film. I want to basically take that approach for the fourth film, for the fifth film, for the sixth film, for the seventh film, and for the eighth film.